Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Let us continue with our tafsir of Surah An-Nisaa bihawlillahi wa quwwatih. Ayah number 160. قال الله تبارك وتعالى فبظلم من الذين هادوا حرمنا عليهم طيبات أحلت لهم وبصدهم عن سبيل الله كثيرا. So the ayat are still speaking about the Yahud. He says, فَبِظُلْمٍ, because of the zulm, or the wrongdoing or the transgression of the Jews, الَّذِينَ هَادُوا. And we spoke about this word, Yahud. Either it comes from one of their forefathers, Yahuda, or that it comes from the verb hada Yahudu, which means to return, when they repented from worshipping the golden calf. In any case, because of the wrongdoing of the Yahud, and the wrongdoing mentioned is what the previous ayat spoke about, how they broke their covenant that they will obey Allah Jalla wa Ala and did not obey Him, and about how they worshipped the golden calf and how they belied the prophets, how they tried to kill the prophets, and these types of things. So because of all of this wrongdoing, they received their punishment in this world, and the punishment was that Allah made haram for them certain things which He had made halal previously. We ask ourselves, what is the tayyibat spoken of? This refers to certain types of food which were halal for them, but then Allah made it haram. Previously we came across the ayah كل الطعام كان حلا لبني إسرائيل إلا ما حرم إسرائيل على نفسه من قبل أن تنزل التوراة. All food was halal for the Banu Israel before the Torah was revealed, except those things which Israel himself, as in Yaqub alayhi salam, himself made unlawful for himself. So we find that before the Torah, everything was halal for Banu Israel except what Israel himself prohibited, which was camel meat and camel's milk. So that was initially the case. Then afterwards, because of the transgressions of the Yahud, Allah made haram certain things which were halal. He mentioned this in Surah Al-An'am in ayah 146. وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ هَادُوا حَرَّمْنَا كُلَّ ذِي ظُفْرٍ وَمِنَ الْبَقَرِ وَالْغَنَمِ حَرَّمْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ شُحُومَهُمَا إِلَّا مَا حَمَلَتْ ظُهُورُهُمَا أَوْ الْحَوَايَا أَوْ مَا اخْتَلَطَ بِعَظْمٍ ذَلِكَ جَزَيْنَاهُمْ بِبَغْيِهِمْ وَإِنَّا لَصَادِقُونَ. He says, to the Jews we forbade every animal with undivided hoof, so where the fingers are joined on like camels, and we forbade them the fat of the ox and the sheep except what adheres to their backs or their entrails, or that which is mixed up with the bone. So these types of fats were halal. The other types of fats then for these animals were haram for them to consume. He says, thus we recompense them for their rebellion, and indeed we are truthful. And the ayah also goes on to say, وَبِصَدِّهِمْ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ كَثِيرًا, and due to their blocking people off from the path of Allah. So because they blocked people off from the path of Allah, Allah Jalla wa Ala made haram for them certain food which were halal. So not only would they rebel against the prophets, they would encourage others to rebel as well and block others off from following the rules and regulations which the prophets laid down. Ayah 161 follows on, وَأَخْذِهِمْ الرِّبَا وَقَدْ نُهُوا عَنْهُ وَأَكْلِهِمْ أَمْوَالَ النَّاسِ بِالْبَاطِلِ وَأَعْتَدْنَا لِلْكَافِرِينَ مِنْهُمْ عَذَابًا أَلِيمًا. So he continues on telling us the reasons why he made haram certain food items, and from the reasons is that they consumed riba. So because the Banu Israel were just so infatuated with wealth, and of course Jews to this day are infatuated with wealth, this infatuation led to them consuming riba, and it was expressly prohibited for them to consume riba, but their love for the wealth completely overtook them. So they would charge interest on loans that they would give, as of course this is from the type of interest. And he says, وَأَكْلِهِمْ, and eating أَمْوَالَ النَّاسِ, the wealth of the people, بِالْبَاطِلِ, with falsehood, meaning with undue right. So this refers to bribery. They would take bribery from people, and this is taking people's wealth without due right. And he says, we have prepared for the kuffar amongst them a painful torment. Notice he says amongst them, which means that amongst them are those who did not commit kufr, who had integrity to Allah and His messengers, so that they are not all the same. In fact, he goes on to speaking about the good ones amongst them in the next ayah, 162. لكن الراسخون في العلم منهم والمؤمنون يؤمنون بما أنزل إليك وما أنزل من قبلك والمقيمين الصلاة والمؤتون الزكاة والمؤمنون بالله واليوم الآخر أولئك سنؤتيهم أجرا عظيما. He says, but the الراسخون, from راسخ يرسخ رسوخا, which means to be firmly embedded in something, or firmly rooted in something, or firmly well versed in something. So these are the راسخون في العلم. They are firmly embedded in knowledge, so they are well versed. He says from them, meaning from Banu Israel. So these راسخون في العلم, it refers to people like Abdullah ibn Salam, who was formerly a rabbi, and other former Yahud as well, like Ka'b al-Ahbar, and also Wahb ibn Munabbih, and these types who have firm knowledge, and they come to embrace Islam because of their knowledge. And he says, وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ, and the believers. This refers to the Muhajirun and Ansar. So these types of people, يُؤْمِنُونَ بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ, they believe, have iman in what was sent down to you, O Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And this refers to the Quran, and that which was sent down before you. So this refers to the previous scriptures, like the Torah, Zabur, Injil, and the scriptures of Ibrahim ﷺ, and other than that. And then it says, وَالْمُقِيمِينَ الصَّلَاةَ. Al-Muqimin, from aqama yuqimu iqamatan, to establish, those who establish as-salah. وَالْمُؤْتُونَ الزَّكَاةَ, and those who give the zakah. Mu'tun is the active participle of the verb ata yu'ti, ita, and to give. But the grammatical question we need to ask ourselves is, why is the word salah and az-zakah mansub bil-fatha? It's because it's actually just a simple maf'ulun bihi, a passive participle, because the salah is being established. The verb is embedded in the word al-muqimin. So the verb is yuqimuna, to establish, but it is in the active participle form. And there's another grammatical question as well. Why is al-muqimin mansub bil-ya, whereas the previous words before it, ar-rasikhun, was marfu', and also wal-mu'minun, that is marfu' because of the waw wal-jama'a, and the noun after it, wal-mu'tun, is also marfu' with the waw. So al-muqimin appears to be the odd one out. It is mansub because of the ya, whereas the ar-rasikhun, wal-mu'minun, wal-mu'tun, all of these are marfu' bil waw. And the answer they give is that Allah Jalla wa Ala is saying that I praise those who establish the salah. So it would read, Amdahu al-muqimin as-salata, I praise those who establish the salah. But amdahu, the word for I praise, is mahdhuf, it is missing because it is implied. And he says, وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ, and those who believe in Allah and the last day. Iman is a key word, of course we have discussed that before. He says, for all these types of people who have just been mentioned, ulaika, those people, gives you the idea that they are far away, not near and close, because they are far away as they occupy the high lofty status, far away from everyone else. Those types of people, سَنُؤْتِيهِمْ, we will give them. Notice the royal we for ta'zim. We will give them an ajran aziman, a great reward. Ajr meaning payment. It is a payment for their effort and their hard work. Okay, so reflecting on all three of these ayat, what may we take? Going back to the first ayah 160, we have this idea of cause and effect. We spoke about this, but you can get a scientific cause and effect, such as if you drop a hammer on a glass, the glass shatters. That is cause and effect. It is a scientific one. But there are also Shar'i causes and effects, such as the one mentioned in the ayah. Because of the Yahud transgressing and sinning and being rebellious, certain things are made haram for them. So we have cause and effect, but this is a Shar'i cause and effect. It is not a scientific one. And from this we can also expand out and say that committing sin and being rebellious against Allah is a means by which you will be deprived of good things. We have people who commit sins and they are deprived of not being able to wake up for Salat al-Tahajjud. And they notice these types of matters. And we also have the narration where the Prophet went out one night to inform people of Laylatul Qadr, and he saw two people arguing, and because of the argument he forgot which night it was on. Likewise, Allah Jalla wa Ala saying in the battlefield, do not argue against each other, that you will lose courage and your strength will depart from you. We also find that it is Allah alone who makes halal and haram, food items and other than that. We also take the warning against hindering people from the path of Allah Jalla wa Ala, as what the Banu Israel used to do. And this is something that we find much of the media doing, discouraging people from embracing Islam and trying to portray Muslims in a bad and negative light to repulse people from Islam. We also find that the riba is haram, and whoever consumes riba and deals with the riba, then he has a resemblance to the Yahud. Also, we take the prohibition of consuming wealth without due right, meaning other than ways in which the Sharia allows. So of course the riba is one way, but also taking bribes is another way of consuming people's wealth without due right. But as for proper normal trade, then that is permissible. Or if you are given a gift through someone's goodwill, then you may consume that wealth, no problem. We also take the justice that Allah Jalla wa Ala has. Notice how He says that He has prepared the painful torment for the kuffar amongst them. So not all of them are the same type of people. Some of them are true and genuine believers. We also notice His justice when He talks about the rasikhuna fil ilm amongst the Banu Israel. So He's essentially giving a shout out to the genuinely good believers amongst Banu Israel, just in case the reader thinks that all of Banu Israel are evildoers. And there is a lesson in this for us. We must also be balanced in all our affairs and in all our speech and beliefs. However, it needs to be noted that everything is in its proper context. When you evaluate someone, then you mention both good and bad. However, if you have to refute someone for their evil ideology, then you do not mention their good, because if you did so, it will overshadow your rebuttal of their evil beliefs and practices. So there you need to only focus on their wrong beliefs and practices when you refute that, because otherwise you'd be undermining your own rebuttal of that particular person of falsehood. So the context always matters. We also notice how He says that the people who are firmly implanted in knowledge, they have Iman, which would indicate to us that knowledge is the way to gaining proper Iman. You cannot have Iman without proper knowledge. We also find the necessity of believing in the Quran and the previous scriptures as well. In the ayah there is also a slight hint that the last prophet is indeed the last prophet, because He says, وَمَا أُنزِلَ مِن قَبْلِكَ, and what was sent down before you. So this slightly implies that the last prophet is indeed the last prophet, as all the other prophets were before him. And even if one is not convinced with this ayah, it does not matter. We have clear-cut ayat that tell us that Muhammad ﷺ is the last prophet. And from the ayah we also find the virtue of establishing the salah and giving the zakah and having proper iman in Allah and the last day. The mushrikun also had iman in Allah, but they had no iman in the last day. So then this iman in Allah would be of no use to them. And the fadila is that Allah promises these people an ajran aziman. هذا والله أعلم.